paper. Ruto's mystery calls. There's a picture of former Deputy President Gachagua, and then there's insets of the late Dr. Job Obwaka as well as Dr. Daniel Gachagua. President William Ruto's name was yesterday drawn into two separate but unsettling narratives where doctors and political power intersected through phone calls that ended in controversy and loss. In the matters involving the late Dr. Job Obwaka and cardiologist Dr. Daniel Gachagua, there were claims of direct and indirect presidential contact during moments of intense political pressure, raising questions about undue influence. Though unrelated in outcome, the accounts converge on a troubling pattern of power reaching into medical and custodial spaces with consequences that are still being debated. Yikes, and I think that's my question as well. But let's listen to this point from the widow of Dr. Job Obwaka, Everose Chimtai. She said things changed along the way and they called the office of the president and he was ordered to withdraw a case in court he had filed. So this is when, of course, during the memorial service yesterday, and she was talking about what had happened in the lead up to her husband's arrest. And she said State House called and said withdraw this case because he had filed a case. He was brought in with a number of others. I remember she mentioned Professor Biakika and a number of others to essentially streamline the operations of the Nairobi hospital.
Correct.
Right? And she said along the line he found out that things were actually not going right, and that he said, we've been called in to do this, we're not going to allow things to continue going south, so he brought this case. Now during that time is when he was told, hey, kill this story, and he declined to kill the story. So she all but said the reason when the time that his troubles started is after he had been told to recall or withdraw the case, and he declined to do so. You see?
Yeah.
All right. So she talked about the issues there. Dr. Daniel Gachagua in court yesterday said, I must be honest enough to specify that I did receive a call from our president asking about the status of the patient, Rigathi Gachagua, and I responded accordingly. Now, on the top of it, is there a problem if the president gave a call to the doctor that was attending to former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua? Would there be a problem?
Well, politically speaking, yes.
Okay. At the time, remember that he was to come back in the afternoon session for delivery of the decision, which is when he fell ill.
Allegedly.
Okay.
But I think, the problem is not even the medical procedures or condition that he may have been in. It is a political interference that people are trying to read. Because if you are impeaching somebody because the president must have initiated it, either directly or otherwise, to a point, why would you be bothered? He could argue, I was just concerned as a fellow human being. Wanted to know how serious it was. Also, was it a goof? Him trying to play a no-show. So many things come in play. But I think ultimately it's a political question more than a medical question. Also, I think the lawyers are trying to build up their defense because they really would love to tear down the impeachment motion. But I keep saying the impeachment is not a judicial matter per se. It is more of a political process, and it happened. It is what it is today. He stands impeached, and I see also remember the case of Mike Sonko when he wanted to vie, and then he was told you stand impeached, and they were trying to evoke I don't remember the article saying that you have to exhaust
all possible avenues of what is the word they use? Appeal.
Of appeal.
Yes.
But the real truth that holds is that you still stand impeached, even as you explore other means of relief. Even when you go to the Constitutional Court, the High Court, So the man stands impeached. It's okay for them to play it out in court. This is why we have the judiciary. It is fine. Everybody has to build their own defenses. Everybody has to, it's like you go to a hospital, they have to build a differential so they get a diagnosis. It is okay. So I'm okay with the doctor being called to the docs and answering the questions. I'm okay hearing the president call, but I'm waiting for the pronouncement. because we cannot violate our constitution. Once you're impeached, you're impeached.
You're impeached.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see. I was still trying to make the connection between this insistence on this particular phone call to Dr. Gachagua and what relevance it plays in all of this. Because the implication here is very strong.
Yep.
That the call was made to indeed determine whether this gentleman was unwell or not. Do you see?
Yeah.
Not whether you were calling in to check on him. Hey Joe, how is he doing? You know, I know you. I just wanted to make sure that the man is okay. Or were you trying to see whether he was truly sick and whether the doctor would disclose this information to you?
And
if that's the point that the legal team is trying to bring out here, that interference should not have happened. If that is the case, how does it play out exactly on these things that you're talking about? What does it have to do with the motion then that was raised for impeachment and not the process of everything else that happened?
And then there's an addendum to the doctor's statement. He said he had to consult the patient before giving a response. So he had
want me to tell them?
What should I say? I've received this call about you. What should I say? So then the patient allowed the doctor to disclose the information, to respond to the president. Or rather now, the impeached deputy president gave Dr. Gachagua consent to tell the president that this is the status. And I think he said that we're still running tests. When we have a conclusive,
we'll come back to you. This is the thing. And so all of this and how it will play out will be very, very interesting.
So they were talking through the doctor. That's the point. That's the other point.
Yes, so the thing is you are unable to determine the intent at this point, because one of the things that we know that in a court of law, you cannot tell me what happened somewhere else. You have to, it is your testimony that comes through. So the intent of whether this was a friendly phone call or whether there was an investigative point to this, like, let's see what's going on, because nobody can tell me that not everybody within that political sphere was keeping tabs of this process on that Thursday. I won't forget it was a Thursday, and everybody was kind of like, okay, so he's in hospital, what does that mean? They went back to the chamber and continued with the process, whether the man was in hospital or not.
And then legally speaking, is that okay? Because again, he had representation.
Yes, he did.
He had his lawyers. So did he have to be there in person? I think the pronouncement by the National Assembly at the time was that it was not important for him to be there in person. So whether he was taken ill or not,
wouldn't matter.
So we wait and see.
It'll be interesting to see how they're going to draw this. And imagine that's just the front page of the Standard. Looking into some other stories making the headlines this morning. If I can just get the page to turn, that would be fantastic. Okay, here we go. Progress. Top State House official pushed Dr. Obwaka to his death, says his widow. This woman took an opportunity yesterday to tell you what happened, and she said it very clearly. I may not ever get another opportunity to say to you. And she was speaking from a point of, this is a man that she's known for 46 years. She had no reason. She's apolitical. She had no reason to tell you these things if they were untrue. No reason from what she was saying. And you could see, I mean, you can be a judge of character by the way you see somebody. And she was genuine in her assertions. And she said, you know what? My husband, though he was aged, he was okay. That she could see the degradation as a result of this stress point, especially after he took on this particular case where he was saying no to some of the operations that he saw at the hospital. He was saying no. And she could see that is when things started to fall apart. And she said somebody pushed him to his death. Not literally pushed him down the stairs, but this happened as a result of that. I presented a letter from his doctor stating that he had had open heart surgery and that he could not sleep in the cold. But police said their hands were tied and that they were getting instructions. And she said it yesterday from the top. She said he had open heart surgery. He couldn't have slept in the cold. All I was asking for was for him to be given a mattress if you had to keep him in the cell overnight. And they said, kama ni huyo, hapana, kwanza huyo, hapana. Those are the words that she used. She was very clear that there was an external hand in the death of her husband.
He goes on to say he did not die a quiet death. He died wounded, not by disease, but by betrayal. He was hunted harassed, and humiliated. He was arrested on charges no honest tribunal would entertain. He spent 2 nights in a police cell, said Mongela. He was paraded before a criminal court for offenses he never